A single breath can bring back the dead, not truly, of course, not in flesh and bone, but for one heartbeat, one perfect moment, they return. The way someone laughed, the warmth of their hand, the particular quality of light in a room you shared together. The Victorians understood this better than we do today. They did not simply wear perfume to smell pleasant. They captured memories in glass bottles. They wore their grandmother's rose water to feel her presence at a wedding. They kept a handkerchief scented with a lost love's cologne, tucked into a drawer where it could be found on lonely evenings. And the women who made these scents, they were alchemists of emotion, artists who worked not with paint or clay, but with the invisible, with memory itself. Today, I will tell you about one such woman, a perfumer in Victorian London who spent her days creating fragrances for others, and her evenings breathing in the one scent that kept her husband alive. Come in, dear visitor, come in from the evening chill. The fire is warm and the hour is quiet, and I have been waiting for you. Here, let me show you something rather special. This perfume bottle. Do you see how the light catches the cut crystal? Each facet was carved by hand. 100 tiny windows that break the candlelight into rainbows. Feel the weight of it in your hand, the cool smoothness of the glass. The silver cap bears a London hallmark, a tiny leopard's head that tells us it was crafted here, in this city, sometime in the 1870s. But it is not the bottle that makes this precious. It is what remains inside. Lift the stopper if you would, gently now, gently. The glass is old and the seal is fragile. There. Now lean close and breathe in. Do you smell it? Faint, after all these years. A ghost of rose, a whisper of jasmine, and beneath it, something warmer, something that lingers. Vanilla, perhaps, sandalwood, the kind of scent that settles into your skin and stays there, whispering its secrets through the hours. This perfume was called Evening in May, and it was created by a woman named Arabella Fontaine in a small workshop above her perfume shop in Covent Garden. Let me tell you her story. The day begins, as all of Arabella's days begin, before the sun has fully risen. She slips from her bed in the small apartment above her shop, leaving the warmth of quilts and the lingering traces of dreams. The floorboards creak beneath her feet, familiar complaints from an old house that has learned her rhythms over the years. She has lived here for nearly 2 decades now, since she and Henri first came to London from Paris, and she knows every sound this building makes. The garden waits. It is not much of a garden, really. A narrow strip of earth behind the building, perhaps 15 feet long and half as wide, hemmed in by brick walls covered in climbing roses. The walls are old and crumbling in places, and over the years the roses have found every crack and crevice, sending their roots deep into the ancient mortar. But to Arabella, this small space is everything. Here grow the roses she tends herself, the deep red damasks whose petals she will harvest this morning. Their velvet blooms are heavy with dew, each one a perfect cup of crimson, holding tiny pools of gathered moisture. Here the jasmine climbs the south-facing wall, its white flowers still closed against the early light, waiting for the warmth of full morning to unfurl their waxy petals. Here the lavender bushes release their purple scent when her skirts brush past them, and the air is thick with the green smell of growing things. The air is cool and damp this morning, heavy with the particular freshness that comes only at dawn. There is a quality to this hour that Arabella treasures above all others, a sense of possibility and peace that fades as soon as the city truly wakes. For this brief, precious time, London is quiet, and her garden is the whole world. Dew clings to every petal, every leaf, catching the first pale light and transforming her small garden into a place of tiny diamonds. When she moves among the plants, her skirts darken with moisture, and the drops that fall from disturbed branches feel like cold kisses against her hands. Arabella kneels beside the rose bushes, her gathering basket beside her on the damp earth. She wears an old dress for this work, faded blue cotton that she does not mind staining with earth and green. Her fingers find the roses by feel as much as sight, selecting only those blooms that have opened overnight, their petals still holding the morning's moisture. This is the secret, you see. Rose petals must be gathered before the sun grows too warm, before the heat draws out their oils and scatters their fragrance into the empty air. The essence of a rose is a fleeting thing, more spirit than substance. It must be captured in that precious hour between darkness and day, when the flower is most itself. She works in silence, the only sounds the occasional call of a waking bird and the soft whisper of petals settling into her basket. A blackbird sings from somewhere in the roses above her, its song liquid and pure. Further away, she can hear the first stirrings of the city, a door opening, a dog barking, the distant rumble of a cart on cobblestones. By the time the basket is full, the sun has crested the rooftops of London. Smoke begins to rise from chimneys throughout the neighbourhood. The city is waking, and Arabella has work to do. The workshop occupies the entire second floor of the building, above the shop where customers browse and purchase. It is Arabella's sanctuary, her laboratory, her artist's studio. Shelves line every wall, reaching from floor to ceiling, and upon these shelves rest hundreds upon hundreds of glass bottles and jars. Each bears a handwritten label in her careful script: Rose Otto, Bergamot, Neroli, Sandalwood, Vetiver, Jasmine, Absolute, Ylang Ylang, Benzoin, Frankincense, Labdanum, Orris Root, Ambergris. Some bottles contain pale golden liquids, precious essential oils that cost more by the ounce than many people earn in a month. The Rose Otto from Bulgaria is worth twice its weight in gold, each drop representing thousands of petals crushed and distilled to capture their essence. Others hold darker substances, the heavy bass notes that anchor a perfume and give it lasting power. Still others contain powders and resins, dried herbs and flower petals, the raw materials from which all fragrance begins. In the centre of the room stands Arabella's workbench. It is scarred and stained from years of use, marked by the rings of countless bottles and the spillage of 1,000 experiments. Here rest her tools, the delicate brass scales for measuring ingredients to the fraction of a grain, the glass pipettes for transferring precious drops of oil, the strips of blotting paper she uses to test her creations, the leather-bound notebook where she records every formula, every experiment, every success and failure. The morning light streams through tall windows that face east, illuminating motes of dust that drift lazily through the air. The room smells of everything and nothing, a complex tapestry of scent that has seeped into the very walls over the years. It is a smell that means home to Arabella, more than any other place in the world. She is transferring the morning's rose petals into glass jars when she hears footsteps on the stairs. The door opens and Lily appears, slightly out of breath from her walk across the city. She is 19 years old, with bright copper hair that escapes in wisps from beneath her cap, and a face dusted with freckles. She has been Arabella's assistant for 2 years now, and in that time she has proven herself to have what Arabella calls a nose, that rare gift for distinguishing and remembering scents. "Good morning, Mrs. Fontaine," Lily says, already reaching for her apron. She notices the basket of roses. "Oh, you have been to the garden already. The damasks?" "The very same," Arabella replies. "The morning was fine and I could not waste it. Come, wash your hands. I want to continue your education this morning." She leads Lily to a section of shelving where 3 bottles stand slightly apart from the others. Each contains a different essential oil, and Arabella has Lily close her eyes before presenting the first. "Tell me what you smell. Do not rush. Let the scent reveal itself to you." Lily breathes in carefully, her brow furrowing in concentration. "It is bright," she says slowly, "like sunshine." "Citrus?" She breathes again. "Lemon?" "No, not quite. Lighter than lemon. More. There is something floral underneath." "Bergamot," Arabella confirms, pleased, "from the rind of a small orange that grows in Italy. This is what we call a top note. It is the first thing you smell when you open a bottle of perfume, the greeting at the door. It fades quickly, within perhaps half an hour, but it is essential. It creates the first impression." She presents the second bottle. Lily inhales. This one is different, deeper, sweeter. She searches for the words, like flowers but richer, more complicated. "Rose absolute," Arabella says. "This is a middle note, the heart of a perfume. It emerges as the top notes fade, and it carries the true character of the scent. A middle note can last for several hours on the skin." The third bottle makes Lily pause the longest. "It is warm," she says finally, "soft, like being wrapped in velvet, like sitting beside a fire on a winter evening. Sandalwood, a bass note. These are the foundation upon which all else is built. They give a perfume its depth, its staying power. A good bass note can last on the skin for an entire day, long after everything else has faded. Lily opens her eyes, and they are bright with understanding. So a perfume is like a story, she says. It unfolds over time. The beginning, the middle, the end. Arabella smiles. Exactly so. Or like a piece of music. A perfumer does not simply mix pleasant smells together. She composes, she orchestrates, she creates something that changes, that reveals itself slowly over hours. Their lesson is interrupted by the sound of the shop bell below. Heavy footsteps on the stairs announce a visitor before he appears. Mr. Blackwood fills the doorway, a large man made larger by his travelling coat and the leather trunk he carries. His face is weathered from years of sea voyages and foreign suns, deeply lined around the eyes. His beard is streaked with grey, and about him clings the faint exotic scent of distant lands. "Mrs. Fontaine," he says with a slight bow, "I have returned from the East and I bring treasures." The trunk opens to reveal carefully packed bottles and pouches, each wrapped in layers of cloth to protect it from the long journey across oceans. Blackwood unpacks them reverently, naming each as he presents it to Arabella's inspection. Ilang Ilang from the Philippines, distilled from flowers picked before dawn. Rose Otto from Bulgaria, pressed from 10,000 petals to yield a single ounce. Sandalwood from Mysore, the heartwood of trees that grew before Napoleon was born. Frankincense from Oman, harvested by the same families for generations. And this, he says, holding up a small dark bottle, this is something special. Jasmine, absolute from Grasse, made by the old method, the finest I have ever found. Arabella takes the bottle and removes the stopper. The scent that rises is extraordinary, rich and honeyed and utterly intoxicating. It is the smell of summer nights in southern France, of white flowers opening their petals to the moonlight, of romance and mystery and the fleeting sweetness of youth. "It is perfect," she says quietly. She examines each offering in turn, testing, evaluating, selecting only those that meet her exacting standards. When the transaction is complete and Blackwood has departed, Arabella turns to find Lily watching her with curiosity. "The jasmine," Lily says. "Why did that one make you sad?" Arabella pauses, surprised by the question. "Was I sad?" For just a moment, when you first smelled it, your eyes changed. They went somewhere else. Arabella considers this. The jasmine from Grasse had reminded her for just an instant of another jasmine, another time. But that is a story for later. For now, there is work to be done. The afternoon brings Lady Ashworth. She arrives in a rustle of silk and the faint cloud of her usual perfume, a French creation that Arabella privately considers too heavy for an English summer. But Lady Ashworth is a good customer and a kind woman, and Arabella greets her warmly as she settles into the velvet chair reserved for consultations. The consultation corner is the most elegant part of the shop, designed to make customers feel pampered and important. A small table covered in deep blue velvet holds an array of testing strips and small bottles. The chair is comfortable without being too soft, positioned near the window where the light is flattering but not harsh. Mrs. Fontaine, I come to you with a special commission. Lady Ashworth's hands flutter nervously in her lap, betraying the importance of her request. My daughter Eleanor is to be married in September to young Mr. Harrington of Devonshire. I wish to give her a perfume that she can wear on her wedding day and forever after. Something that will always remind her of that happiness. Arabella takes up her notebook, a smaller one reserved for customer consultations. Tell me about Eleanor. Lady Ashworth's face softens with maternal love, her nervousness fading as she speaks of her child. She is 22, gentle and kind, the sort of girl who stops to speak with every stray cat and remembers the names of all the servants' children. But she has a spirit of adventure that sometimes worries me. She reads novels about explorers and talks of wanting to see the pyramids someday. She loves gardens and books and long walks in the countryside, even when it rains. She laughs easily at small things as well as large. And she is marrying a good man who adores her. He looks at her the way my late husband used to look at me. And what would you like this perfume to say? Lady Ashworth considers carefully, her gloved fingers tracing patterns on the arm of her chair. I want it to be innocent, she says finally, fresh and young and hopeful, like Eleanor herself, but also memorable, not forgettable or ordinary, something that will stay with her and with her husband for all the years of their marriage. When they are old and grey, sitting together by the fire, I want them to smell this perfume and remember the day they began their life together. I want it to carry all the hope of that moment, all the promise, even when the years have changed everything else. Arabella writes these words in her notebook, but her mind is already working. Already she is thinking of florals for innocence, of musks for memory, of the delicate balance between freshness and depth. I will create something worthy of her, she promises. Return in 3 days, and it will be ready. After Lady Ashworth departs, Arabella retreats to her workbench. The afternoon light has shifted, grown golden, and Lily has gone to tend the shop below. Arabella spreads her materials before her. The jasmine absolute from grass, bergamot and neroli for brightness, rose for romance, sandalwood and vanilla for warmth and memory. She begins to compose. It is a process that cannot be rushed, cannot be forced. She works by instinct as much as science. She dips paper strips into various oils, waving them beneath her nose, waiting for the answer to emerge. Rose first, with bergamot. A classic combination. Pleasant, yes, but too simple, too expected. A bride deserves more than the ordinary. She sets the rose aside and reaches for the jasmine. The scent of it transports her immediately, and this time she allows herself to follow it. Henri had loved jasmine. She met him in Paris when she was 23 and travelling with her aunt. It was the spring of 1852, and the city was alive with the particular energy that comes after a revolution, when the old order has fallen and anything seems possible. Henri was 35. a perfumer from a family of perfumers, and he had a small shop in the Marais that smelled of heaven and possibility. She had gone in to purchase a bottle of cologne for her uncle, a simple errand that should have taken 5 minutes. The shop was small but exquisite, bottles arranged like jewels in a cabinet, each one catching the afternoon light. Henri had emerged from the back room with oil stains on his fingers and the most extraordinary smile she had ever seen. 3 hours later, she was still there, sitting at his workbench while he explained the difference between extraction methods, the way different solvents could capture different aspects of a flower's scent. He spoke of perfume the way poets speak of love, with reverence and wonder and an infectious passion that made her lean closer to hear every word. He had offered her coffee, then wine, then dinner at a small restaurant where the owner knew him by name and brought them dishes without being asked. By the time the moon rose over Paris, she knew that her life had changed. By the time she returned to England, she knew she would go back to him. And she did. 3 months later, with the small trunk and her aunt's reluctant blessing. He taught her everything, not just the technical skills, the methods and measurements that any apprentice could learn, but the art of it, the poetry, the soul. He taught her that perfume was not merely a pleasant smell, but a form of expression as profound as music or painting. He taught her to listen with her nose, to hear the stories that sense could tell. And when they married, a year after that first meeting, he created a perfume for her. On their wedding night, in the small apartment above his shop, he presented it in a simple glass bottle tied with a white ribbon. Evening in May, he called it, because that is when we met. An evening in May when the jasmine was blooming outside my window and I fell in love with an English girl who did not know bergamot from lemon. This perfume is for her, for you, for every evening in May that we will share together. She has the bottle still. It sits on her dressing table, nearly empty now after all these years. She uses it sparingly, only on nights when the loneliness becomes too heavy to bear. Henri died 8 years ago, of a fever that took him in 3 days. He had seemed perfectly well on Monday. By Thursday evening, he was gone. There was not even time to say goodbye properly. One moment he was there, warm and laughing and full of plans for the future. The next, he was gone, and Arabella was alone with the shop full of beautiful scents and a heart full of silence. But the perfume remains, and so does his voice, echoing through her memory as she works. Love needs lightness to breathe, he used to say. Do not smother it with too many notes. Let it have air. Let it dance. Arabella reaches for a different combination. Bergamot, bright as sunshine through clean windows. A touch of rose, just a touch. Not enough to overwhelm, but enough to whisper of romance. Neroli, the scent of orange blossoms, traditional for brides since ancient times. And beneath it all, the warm embrace of vanilla and the gentle whisper of sandalwood. She mixes, tests, adjusts, adds a drop of this, removes a drop of that. The afternoon fades into evening. Lily brings tea which grows cold at her elbow. forgotten in the intensity of creation. The candles are lit as the daylight fails, their warm glow replacing the cool clarity of the sun. And still she works. It is not quite right. Close, but not quite. Something is missing, some element that would transform this pleasant fragrance into something extraordinary. She can feel it hovering just out of reach, a ghost of an idea that refuses to take solid form. And then, somewhere in the quiet hours between dusk and darkness, she remembers something else Henri said. The best perfumes are not created, they are discovered. They exist already somewhere in the possibility of things, and the perfumer's job is simply to find them. Arabella closes her eyes. She thinks about Eleanor, about a young woman who loves gardens and adventures, who is about to step into a new life with a man who adores her. She thinks about hope, about the courage it takes to love someone, knowing that love makes us vulnerable. She opens her eyes and reaches for one more bottle, ambergris, just the smallest amount, not for the scent itself, but for what it does. It takes the notes around it and makes them more themselves. It is the magic that makes everything else more magical. She adds a single drop and lifts the testing strip to her nose. And there it is, the scent she has been searching for. Fresh as a garden at dawn, sweet as first love, warm as a promise kept. It is the smell of hope, of beginning, of a life stretching forward, full of unknown joys. Lily, she calls softly, and her assistant appears from the shadows. Come, tell me what you smell. Lily takes the paper strip and closes her eyes. She breathes in slowly, allowing the scent to unfold. It is like a garden at twilight, she says finally, when the flowers are closing but you can still smell them on the air. It is like being happy and not knowing why. Yes, Arabella whispers, that is exactly it. She works for another hour, perfecting the proportions, recording the formula in her notebook. Then she decants the finished perfume into a beautiful crystal bottle with a silver stopper in the shape of a rose. For the label, she writes simply, "For Eleanor, September 1875. The shop has been closed for hours. Lily has gone home to her family, to the small rooms she shares with her mother and sisters in Clerkenwell. The streets of London are quiet now, the gaslights casting pools of yellow light onto empty cobblestones. Somewhere a dog barks, somewhere a door closes. The great city sleeps, or pretends to. Arabella climbs the narrow stairs to her private apartment above the workshop. It is a small space, simply furnished, but it contains everything she needs. A bed with a quilt her mother made, decades ago now. The colours faded, but the stitches still strong. A chair by the window, where she reads in the evenings. A dressing table with a mirror that has reflected her face for 20 years, watching as youth softened into middle age. On this dressing table, in a place of honour, sits a small glass bottle. The glass is clouded with age, the ribbon long since lost, but the stopper is tight, and the precious liquid within is carefully preserved. Evening in May. Arabella sits before the mirror and removes the pins from her hair. letting it fall around her shoulders in waves of dark brown shot through with silver. She looks at her reflection, at the fine lines around her eyes, at the touches of grey at her temples. Henri would not recognize me now, she thinks. I have grown old without him. But then she reaches for the bottle, and she knows this is not true. She removes the stopper, and the scent rises to meet her like an old friend. Jasmine, first and always. The jasmine from their garden in Paris, the one that bloomed outside their bedroom window on warm May evenings. Beneath it, the warmth of sandalwood, rich and golden as his laughter. A touch of vanilla, sweet as his kiss against her temple when he thought she was sleeping. And something else, something she has never been able to identify in all the years she has studied this perfume. Some secret ingredient that was Henri's alone, that he never taught her. His final mystery, his lasting gift. She closes her eyes and breathes in, and for one perfect moment, he is there. Not as a ghost or a memory, but as a presence, the warmth of him beside her, the sound of his voice speaking her name, the particular way he had of laughing at his own jokes before he had finished telling them. "My love," she whispers to the empty room, "I made a perfume today for a young bride. I think you would have liked it. I think you would have said it needed more jasmine, because everything needs more jasmine. But I think you would have been proud." The scent fades, as it always does. Henri returns to wherever the dead go when we are not remembering them. Arabella replaces the stopper carefully, preserving what little remains. But she does not feel sad, not tonight. Tonight she feels something closer to peace. She has taken her grief and transformed it into beauty. She has taken her memories and poured them into bottles. Tomorrow a young bride will wear a perfume that carries within it a whisper of Henri's wisdom, a touch of his magic. Love continues. It changes form, but it continues. Outside her window, London sleeps beneath a scatter of stars. The perfume shop below is dark and quiet, its shelves lined with 100 different fragrances, each one a small miracle of art and chemistry and memory. Somewhere across the city, Eleanor sleeps too, dreaming perhaps of September, of white dresses and orange blossoms, of the life that waits for her. Tomorrow there will be more roses to gather, more customers to serve, more scents to create. Tomorrow, Lily will arrive with questions, eager to learn more of this strange art. Tomorrow, Lady Ashworth will return for her daughter's gift, and Arabella will see the tears in her eyes when she smells it for the first time. But for now, in this quiet hour, Arabella Fontaine sits before her mirror and lets the last traces of jasmine fade from the air. And so, dear visitor, that is the story of Arabella Fontaine, the perfumer who captured memories in glass bottles, the widow who kept her husband alive in a few precious drops of evening in May. She lived for another 30 years after that evening I have described to you. She trained Lily to take over the shop and watched that bright young woman become a master perfumer in her own right. She created hundreds of fragrances, some of which are still made today, though few remember the woman who first composed them. But she never created another perfume for herself. She had no need. The bottle of Evening in May lasted her until the end. On the night she died, her family found it open on her dressing table, the last of its contents released into the air of her bedroom. They said the room smelled of jasmine and sandalwood, of vanilla and something sweet they could not name. They said it smelled of love. This bottle I hold now is not that original. That bottle was buried with Arabella as she requested. This is one she made for her shop, a version mixed from memory and longing. It is not quite the same. It could never be quite the same. But it carries within it the echo of Henri's creation, filtered through his wife's hands and heart. There is a kind of magic in that, I think, a perfume made by a man in love, recreated by the woman he loved, now resting in my shop 150 years later. Each time I open it, I breathe in not just roses and jasmine, but the very essence of their story. Now then, dear visitor, the hour grows late and the candles burn low. The world outside my window has grown quiet, and soon it will be time for sleep. This bottle goes back to its shelf now, beside the other treasures I have gathered over the years. It will rest there in the darkness, dreaming of jasmine gardens and May evenings, of a perfumer's workbench and the sound of a French accent speaking words of love. Perhaps tonight, when you close your eyes, you will dream of scents and memories, of the fragrance your grandmother wore, or the smell of your childhood home, or some other essence that carries you back through time to a moment of perfect happiness. And if you do, remember Arabella. Remember that every perfume tells a story. Remember that love, true love, can be captured in a glass bottle and preserved for a lifetime. Sleep well, dear friend. May your dreams be fragrant and your memories sweet. Rest now, rest, and breathe deep, and let the scent of evening carry you gently into the night.